Hello, now we're going to work on forming our draft of our essay, our culminating writing task draft. If you will, open up lesson 5.3 and open up the culminating task draft document. It's going to be under your work in that lesson. You're going to have to open the lesson itself, not just expand it on the list. Now, the first thing you're going to take care of, if you notice up here in the upper right hand corner, it says your last name and then it has a space and the number 1. This is called a header. So where it says your last name, you're going to click and highlight. You're actually going to double click, then highlight, and then you're going to type your last name. Now I'm going to type my last name, which is Bogard, but you're going to go ahead and type your last name. And then you're going to click off. Basically, that will allow for your last name plus the page number to be at the upper right-hand corner of every page. Now, if you go over here on the left, you have your heading. Notice where it says your name. You're going to type your name. So you can triple click or you can click and drag. And you're going to type your name over. I'm just going to put S. Bogard. But I would prefer it if you put your first name and your last name, your actual first name and last name, not any nicknames or things like that. Notice then it has my name, then the course, and the day, the month, and the year. That's so that you don't have to worry about where commas go. So since this is going to be due on Monday, I'm going to put Monday's date in it. So that would be the 16th of May, 2022. Now I'm not going to worry about the title yet because I want to kind of form the title after we create the body paragraphs, then the introduction and the conclusion. So we're going to start with our body paragraphs and we're going to use our culminating task tool to build those body paragraphs. So here is our first body paragraph taken from the gathering evidence portion of the culminating task tool. In recent decades, researchers have found that the human brain does not finish developing until the early to mid-20s. While this may suggest teen brains to be woefully underdone, they are in fact still capable of adult-level decision-making, indicating that the teenage years are not a desert for good decisions. In his article, Teenage Brains Are Malleable and Vulnerable, researchers say, John Hamilton writes about the high-level decision-making teens demonstrated on a computer game that awarded points for correct answers. The study was conducted by B.J. Casey. When a lot of points were at stake, teens actually spent more time studying the dots than adults, and brain scans showed more activity in brain regions involved in making decisions. Instead of acting impulsively, the teens are making sure they get it right, Casey says. She says this shows how teens' sensitivity to rewards can sometimes lead to better decisions. Hamilton 12. That's a citation. That's a parenthetical citation. You need to make sure that you include that when you type your paragraph, this paragraph. Casey's research suggests that teens are not the clueless buffoons they are often thought to be. When presented with the right circumstances, they can not only match adults' careful decision-making, they can surpass it. This proves that being a teen does not mean a person will automatically make terrible decisions. Those circumstances that breed positive choices tend to include compelling rewards. So I'm going to flash up on the screen the paragraph for you to type. Now it's single-spaced as it is written, but as you type it into your draft document, that will make it double-spaced. So here is that first body paragraph. Here's our second body paragraph. An essential prerequisite for good teen decision making is a reward that teens value. The need for reward does not imply a weakness. It is simply a fact of the priorities of a rapidly changing adolescent brain. Though many view teens as reckless and impulsive, prone to accidents and idiocy, in fact, they do carefully evaluate risky situations. David Dobbs writes in Teenage Brains, contrary to popular belief, teens also fully recognize they're mortal, and like adults, says psychologist Lawrence Steinberg, teens actually overestimate risk. Dobbs, 20. Again, another one of those parenthetical citations. It's the presence of a reward that gets teens in gear. Teens take more risks not because they don't understand the dangers, but because they weigh risk versus reward differently. In situations where risk can get them something they want, they value the reward more heavily than adults do. Priorities shift and change as people grow older and brains continue to develop. Research is showing that when presented with the right circumstances, young people can be measured and careful in their decision-making skills. So while teens require a perceived benefit, simply being a teen does not negatively affect a person's actual decision-making skills. In fact, it is possible that this age group is the pinnacle of human adaptability. So now I'm going to put the second body paragraph up on the screen. Now notice this, I'm saying the second body paragraph. After we do our body paragraphs, we're going to go back and do the introduction, the conclusion, and then the title. Here is that second body paragraph for you to type. Now let's look at the third body paragraph. For years, the common belief was that the brains were fully developed by the end of childhood. More recently, as Dobbs outlines, scientists learned that our brains take much longer to develop than we thought. This revelation suggested both a simplistic and flattering explanation for teens' maddening behavior and a more complex affirmative explanation as well. Dobbs, 16. As Dobbs identifies, it is tempting to write off teens' bad behavior by saying that their brains simply aren't finished cooking yet. But that's not the whole story. Teens exist at the pivotal point between childhood and adulthood, a time where social connections, willingness to take risks, and adaptability are key. Dobbs writes, the adolescent brain is less a rough draft than an exquisitely sensitive, highly adaptable creature wired almost perfectly for the job of moving from the safety of home into the complicated world outside. Dobbs, 19. According to Teenage Brains, when it comes to evolutionary skills, teens might have the most essential ones of any age group. More so than even adults, they are perfectly suited to adapting to rapidly changing circumstances. Their interest in the approval of their peers, which presents a highly valuable social reward, sets them up to build essential community ties that strengthen their social survival and their ability to live in the world that will eventually be shaped by their peer group. It turns out that teens' brain development is the most elite among us all. Now here's that third body paragraph for you to type. Now, if you go back up to underneath the title, you'll notice that I have included the introductory paragraph. Mention the word teenager, and you very well may be met with an eye roll or an utterance of, "What's wrong with them?" Many would describe teens as moody, reckless, and erratic, as they have been described for centuries. But new research suggests that teens' brains, for all their frustrating behavioral quirks, are actually far more developed, dynamic, and capable than previously believed. The long-held assumption that adolescents are wired to engage in risky behavior and are wholly undeveloped in the control center of their brains is in fact a myth. Researchers and psychologists have learned that the teen years are a period of high functionality and adaptability, one that exemplifies the strength of the human species. Contrary to popular belief, it turns out that being a teenager actually has a positive impact on one's decision-making ability. And now here is that introductory paragraph for you to put at the beginning of your essay. And now the conclusion at the very tail end of the paper. Ultimately, because teen brains are wired more heavily value reward than adults, their ability to make sound and wise decisions with the promise of a reward will benefit them later in life. The next time you find yourself cringing at the seemingly impulsive or maddening behavior of a teenager, consider that it is these very traits that the teen brain has evolved to exhibit to hold the key to successful lives as adults. In the end, adults who were wise enough as teens to take the risks are more likely to be successful. Thanks to new studies, we can now more fully celebrate the positive decision-making decisions of young people, even if we occasionally find ourselves rolling an eye at their behavior. Now here is the concluding paragraph for you to type. Once you finish, I want you to turn in Lesson 5-3.